Hello everyone, and welcome to this second installment of my Spotlight Occulture Series. Today I'd like to briefly share some things with you regarding the topic of magic, how we can understand it, and how we see this represented in our contemporary media. Some months ago I interviewed Andrea Franchetto for the podcast about magic in the history of religions. And in that discussion, we focused more on magical practices taken from antiquity and medieval periods. Today, I'd like to have another look at an academic chapter that I referenced back then by Bernd-Christian Otto and Michael Stausberg from the book Defining Magic. The chapter is the general introduction called Magic, a Critical Category in the Study of Religions. This chapter discusses magic and the difficulty of the term, the broad semantic field, and the wide range of phenomena that can be categorized as quote-unquote magic. As the authors state, magic is critical by being a category of distinction. It distinguishes things, practices, or ways of thinking from others, including religion, rationality, and science. And they also note that there is no one academic definition of magic. If we look at the list of phenomena they offer, we see 39 different options contained in the family of magic. I'll mention some of them here. Alchemy, amulets, including the making of amulets, words of power to either avert evil influences or to protect against a variety of ills, words of power to expel malevolent forces, to curse or to bind, astrology, charms, divination, conjuring spirits, grimoires and spells, exorcism, incantations and invocations, healing and herbs, transformations, necromancy, that's communicating with the dead, miracles or marvels, spirit possession, potions, sorcery, sacrifice, signs, talismans, witchcraft, and the conjuring of tricks. As you might have noticed, some of these terms could be considered things in their own right, such as alchemy and astrology, plus other phenomena such as exorcism, healing, sacrifice, spirit possession, and miracles. These are found within other religious beliefs and practices, for example, Christianity. So, in this sense, sometimes the words and terms that are used can take on a positive or negative meaning. For example, if one talks about performing a binding spell or saying a prayer, we can probably already distinguish the nuances there. From a Christian perspective, the Lord's Prayer might offer one protection and be considered an acceptable practice, yet a binding spell would be viewed as an undesired form of practice and be spoken about in a pejorative manner. It's important to recognize that there can be bias when discussing the terms and range of phenomena. However, for the purposes of this video, I want to discuss things from an agnostic or neutral point of view. What I'd like to do now is talk a bit about some contemporary expressions of these quote-unquote magic phenomena as we see them playing out in media, in particular TV and films. Just a note here, I'm not intending to review these shows and films, but there most likely will be some spoilers included. Let's start with the Netflix show Brand New Cherry Flavor. This show was recommended to me, and according to IMDb, this show is about a young woman, quote, Lisa Nova, an aspiring film director in the sun-drenched but seamy world of 1990 Los Angeles, who embarks on a mind-altering journey of supernatural revenge that gets nightmarishly out of control, end quote. Now, that's putting it mildly. This is a psychological horror, drama / thriller, and if we look at what's happening in the show, we see a mix of different things. There are a lot of potions being made from plants, herbs, and even animal parts. There's a curse put on the thieving Hollywood producer. There's witchcraft, but definitely in the context of indigenous Brazilian practices. This is combined with spirit possession and the classic deal with the devil trope, as well as zombies or undead people. We also have signs, in this case, in the form of the jaguar print sofa that represents Lisa's mother. There are ablutions, or the act of washing oneself for healing purposes. There are rituals that cause the exploitations of powers, and in this case to influence or cause harm to others. And there's transformation, to name several. I probably have forgotten some things, as it's been a while since I've watched this show. However, there are also things happening that seem to fall outside of Otto and Stausberg's list, such as the lead character vomiting kittens. There's sex magic, there's plants that grow at an unnaturally fast pace, and other rituals that involve human body parts. There is definitely a good versus evil plot device used in the show, and while the quote-unquote magic that Lisa gets involved with seems exciting and desirable at first, it becomes clear that the quote witch who is promising to help Lisa with her curse actually means to possess her body. And then, or from then, the witch is seen in a negative light. Let's move now to another Netflix recommendation called Krakowski Potwory. I probably butchered that. I apologize. It's also called Krakow Monsters in English. This is a Polish supernatural fantasy thriller described as, quote, a young woman named Alex, haunted by her past, joins a mysterious professor and his group of gifted students who investigate paranormal activity and fight demons, end quote. This show uses Slavic mythology and legends as its basis, and as I know next to nothing about those things, I can't really speak to the particular gods or demons being portrayed, but instead let's just look more broadly at what's happening. The main character, Alex, functions as an unexpected hero figure, as well as being in the role of someone knowing nothing about their past or their own powers or gifts, and someone who has to learn along the way in order to come into her own power. Think a Harry Potter type character. The gods and demons in the show seem to have their own agenda, and it seems that most are there to create chaos and destroy things, including Alex. Alex seems to be a very special and important character in the show. However, she seems to have some kind of guardian entity, and the entity seems to be tattooed with symbols all over her body, and this entity protects Alex from harm. The paranormal research group consists of members who all have their own, quote, magical powers, so they are all set apart from the rest of society due to their otherness. Although the show was a bit confusing and complex, probably because I'm not familiar with the mythology and legends, what I could discern were practices such as necromancy, the use of amulets, charms, curses, divination, incantations, invocations, marvels, spirit possession, ritual spells, and the use of grimoires and magical circles with sigils or symbols. Two things to note is that the group performs movements that are very similar in fashion to the movements that are seen in the Netflix show The OA. If you're familiar with that show, you'll know what I'm talking about with the movements, as well as one member's ability in Krakow Monsters to see visions with the help of her palms. This was very much like the character in Guillermo del Toro's film Pan's Labyrinth. So, with these two examples, we can see how, with variations in setting and context, the practices used in these shows seem to be in line with what our authors Otto and Stausberg have mentioned when it comes to the question what phenomena are considered to be in the category of quote-unquote magic. So, if we look at other shows like the fantasy saga The Witcher, this also uses many of the same phenomena. Amulets, talismans, incantations, transformations, sorcery, spells, curses, potions, words of power to harm and to protect, and alchemy. A film like Doctor Strange uses incantations, amulets, talismans, and grimoires, but there's something different here. In Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, a distinction is made between the good grimoire of Vishanti that Doctor Strange uses and the evil grimoire, Darkhold, that Wanda or the Scarlet Witch uses. Another distinction is made in the types of magic that both characters use. Doctor Strange uses sorcery, which here is something that is learned, while Wanda uses witchcraft, which in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is considered an innate ability. These are deviations that are not mentioned in Otto and Stausberg chapter. Another deviation is Doctor Strange's use of necromancy to inhabit a dead body as it's practiced in the Darkhold grimoire. And here necromancy is considered a form of magic that is condemned. As an aside, in our reality, necromancy was also condemned by the Catholic Church, as in medieval times it was used to conjure demons. So we must remember that we have to contextualize our terms, and we also have to be aware that creativity is used in, for example, the innate gifts that the members of the group in Krakow Monsters, these natural gifts or abilities are also not listed in Otto and Stausberg's list about the phenomena of magic. So these are things that have been assimilated, I guess you could say, into what we understand as being magic. You might have noticed that the phenomena in the family of magic up until this point have been descriptive in nature. Otto and Stausberg also discuss how magic can be viewed as essential features or an inventory of traits that, quote, trigger a recognition of X, that is, that feature or trait, as an instance of magic. So let's look at the list, and then we can look at our examples to see what features or traits we can find in them too. I'm reading from page 9 and 10 of the chapter. Magic is said to be coercive, manipulative, seeking to exercise control of others or change the state of things or other human beings, powerful, self-efficacious ritual action, and efficacious meaning here a person's belief in their own capabilities to succeed, instrumental ritual action with limited aims and scope, a practice of obtaining ordinarily unavailable this-worldly benefits, a ritual countermeasure against witchcraft attacks, performed on critical occasions, compulsive hallucinatory behavior, based on a non-ordinary participatory worldview or consciousness, derived from strong emotions such as anger or fear, related to desires, related to supernatural invisible agents or agency typically distinct from gods, non-legitimate dealing with the supernatural, private and or secret, performed by self-employed, non-institutionalized specialists, otherwise known as the magicians, serving their clients, lacking institutional infrastructures, A specific kind of technique, art, or craft requiring special knowledge and or training. Associated with others, such as marginalized groups or outsiders. A category and discursive practice of denunciation of others. Immoral or lacking moral considerations. Characterized by strange or exotic behaviors. Characterized by the use of strange or exotic objects. Characterized by a distinctive use of language and words. Performative acts or performative speech acts. And producing miraculous events. And that was quoted from pages 9 and 10. Those are 25 features or traits that were listed out of a much larger list. Given these features, how do these apply to the examples I've given earlier? If we look at brand new cherry flavor, I could pick out these traits or features. And with Krakow Monsters, I could pick out of the list these traits and features. We can see here that both shows have a lot of traits or features from the list that appear to act as evidence of magic, even though the range is very, very broad. Now, the list of features that I just read is a lot to work with, and the question arises, how would one go about ordering such a diverse list of features? Classifying this would be very fuzzy, so Otto and Stausberg suggest that we could speak of patterns of magicity. They explain that while we most likely can't stop speaking of, quote, magic, when we often perceive evidence for it, we could possibly use the phrase patterns of magicity to deal with, quote, cross-culturally attested observations. Magicity acknowledges the fact that they were traditionally assigned to the overall category of, quote-unquote, magic. There can be, but need not be, cross-references or correlations between patterns. These and other patterns of magicity would need to be identified, analyzed, and explained in their own right. This may seem to a layperson as splitting hairs, but for academics, it's a different way of discussing the phenomena, features, and traits, and attempting to make it a somewhat stable object of study. This is similar to how the term religion is very difficult to define. The term magic is equally so. In closing, this is just one approach to, quote, magic. And of course, there are other ways to approach the category, and examples can be found in Egil Asprum's review of the Defining Magic book. I found this chapter interesting and wanted to share it with you, and I will also link the Asprum article from the journal Correspondences in the description box for those who might want to read about some other perspectives. I hope you have enjoyed this short video. Please share your own ideas, thoughts, and questions in the comment section. Do you like this type of quick summarizing content? Would you like me to continue with this Occulture series? Are there other topics you'd like me to cover? I welcome your feedback. Thanks for watching.